right, copy that down. I'll go through with you. But you will have one identity tomorrow.
Is it a bonus if we get it right?
New.
Sorry, it's our last test rule.
It's not like gaming or
Teachers, please excuse this interruption. Just a quick announcement that we are canceling tonight's movie night for the AP Euro students and the CCP English 4 students. That will not be held tonight. Students and staff, please pay special attention as we move through the next couple of days. If there are any changes or cancellations or anything, any other information you need to know, we will be sure to pass it on. In the meantime, it's business as usual. Go on with your day and make it a great day.
All right,
Close down the complex.
one thing you need to do is sometimes it's discussed. Rarely you don't have to do this, but to convert to sine and cosine is a typical step. You cannot stop until you at least tried that. But I would go ahead and do that right now. So cotangent of theta is cosine over sine. Tangent, sine of theta over cosine. Plus cosine over sine. All right, what do we have to do with the denominator now? Common denominator. We're gonna add those two together, so we get a common denominator. So the numerator stays the same. Bless you. Okay, so for the first one, we gotta add sine of theta to the numerator and denominator. To the second piece, we gotta add cosine of theta. You know where you're going? Keep going. I'll catch you up in a minute. All right, so you got cosine over sine divided by, now when you make that one fraction, the common denominator is sine times cosine or cosine times sine, it doesn't matter. You get sine squared plus cosine squared. What does sine squared plus cosine squared equal?
1.
1. That right there equals 1. So you got cosine theta over sine theta divided by 1 over sine theta times cosine theta. Invert and multiply. So a lot of these common things keep coming up. Convert the sines and cosines. Taking a fraction, adding it with a common denominator. And a lot of times you get a fraction over a fraction where you have to invert and multiply. So when I do that for this one here, I get cosine theta over sine theta times sine theta times cosine theta over 1. And what happens to the sine thetas? Cancel, and I'm left with cosine times cosine, which is, and what was on the right-hand side? Cosine squared theta. Okay, so we matched that up. I didn't have to do anything to that side. So you will have some form of identity tomorrow for the test. All right, I do want to just go through a couple double angle, and then the next page will be half angle. We're gonna use the same conditions here, so get those conditions down. Sine of theta equals -4/5 with theta being in quadrant 2, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'll give you a second.
Wait, isn't that 3?
Quadrant 3. All right, sine of 2 theta is 2 sine of theta times cosine of theta. So the double angle form. We know the sine of theta. We don't know the cosine of theta. Obviously, we can figure it out. We said it was in quadrant 3. That means the y value is -4. That means the hypotenuse is 5. If you do x squared plus -4 squared equals 5 squared, we end up with x equals 3. Now, since it is in quadrant 2, you want to consider it think of it being -3. So we got this enough information from here. All right, so 2 sine of theta times cosine of theta, which equals 2. What's sine of theta? -4/5. Cosine of theta is -3/5. Just multiply it together. Okay, make sure the 2 does not multiply both the numerator and denominator, only the numerator. So 2 times -4 times -3, -24/25. Okay. All right, cosine 2 theta, how many options you got? Positive. Yes, it should be. All right, cosine 2 theta, I think the first one's cosine squared minus sine squared. Okay. All right, we already figured out, the figure, so cosine squared is -3/5 squared minus sine squared, which is -4/5 squared. And then what is that? 9/25 minus positive 16/25. And then what do we end up with? -7/25.
Which sine and cosine?
It's the difference between the A's and the P's right there.
Then the beats must be better.
So yeah, cosine 2 theta is gonna equal -7/25.
I don't know if it's going.
You got that, Dylan?
There's team cut.
For
gotcha.
I did it
for formulas.
Okay, same conditions, sine of theta over 2, and then we'll take a look at tangent theta over 2.
Oh, we can write this whole thing. You sure?
Okay, let's see here. Sine theta over 2 equals plus or minus square root, is it 1 minus cosine? Divided by 2? Okay, so there's our formula. Again, it's in quadrant 3. So the same figures. All right, the plus or minus, does it mean we have 2 answers? One answer. We have to determine whether it's positive or negative based upon where the half angle is. We know theta is going to be a little bit easier if you convert it to degrees. 180 is less than theta is less than 270. So if you divide each piece by 2, you get 90 is less than theta over 2, which is less than 135. What quadrant is that in? That is in quadrant 2, right? So the half angle is in quadrant 2. What does that make this the final answer for sine of theta over 2?
Square root of 5 over 5.
Makes it positive.
Oh,
Easy there. Makes it positive. So it's positive square root 1 minus, well, cosine of theta, we go back up to our figure, cosine of theta is still negative 3/5 divided by 2. All right. I would tell you to keep simplifying all the way as far as you can before you try and mess with the square root. Like, keep simplifying within there. 1 minus negative square root, or excuse me, 1 minus negative 3/5 is going to be 8/5 positive divided by 2. What's 8/5 divided by 2? 8 over 10. That does reduce one more time. 8 over 10 reduces to 4/5. Now, you can still get there by taking the square root of top and bottom, but it just makes it a little more complicated. Because now square root of 4 is 2. And then you can just make it 2 over square root of 5. And then when you rationalize your denominator, which you would need to in this case because it's not too difficult. If you got a question tomorrow, like, hey, do I need to rationalize this? Ask me. I'll let you know. Or if something comes out looks like it's too messy and you don't think you should, just ask me. So you don't either, don't do too much work. All right, what about the next one? You got 3 different equations. Which one would be simplest? They all get you the same answer. I would probably skip the one with the square root and the plus or minus and go. And I'd probably use the denominator just because or the last one, because it only has a single term in the denominator. So it's tangent of theta over 2 equals, and then what is that, 1 minus cosine of theta? Over sine of theta. All right, before we finish this, tell me, should the final answer be positive or negative? You need to know this. Should the final answer be positive or negative, and why? Aaron, what's that?
It's negative because the half angle is in quadrant 2.
Okay, our half angle's in quadrant 2, like you just said, and tangent in quadrant 2 has to be negative. So when we are done, your answer better be negative. Now, if you use the second or third equation off that identity sheet, then it'll automatically work out as long as you do the math right. Cosine of theta, we said that was negative 3/5. Sine of theta, we said was negative 4/5. So 1 minus negative 3/5 is 8/5 divided by negative 4/5. So in the end, what does that equal? Negative 2. Negative 2. All right, I will sleep a little easier tonight, knowing I went over that with you. Okay? So I feel you've been properly prepared. And here's what all I need you to do. Got it, Dylan? All right, way to be on there. Just work through the rest of this review, starting with 9. Now, number 13 here, this is one where you let theta equal 2x. And then you're going to let n equal 1, n equals 0, n equal 1, n equal 2. Figure out your answers, okay?